Hi everyone, Nicole from My Christmas. Nice to see you on Sunday evening. I hope you've had a lovely weekend. So today I thought we'd go back to a little bit of Christmas. I mean, you could do this for Mother's Day if you wanted to as well. This is a centerpiece that we created last year, and it's 90 centimeters long, and it's got a really nice solid metal frame to it, so it actually sits lovely and flat on the table. It's $69.50. I'll just on that for those. I know I sometimes get questions, and I assume you all know who I am and where I'm from. I'm the owner of My Christmas, which is a Christmas store in Melbourne, Australia. We have an online store. This week, don't have much online. A few things are off because we're just finishing off our stock take. So if there's anything you're wanting, you see here, talk to me, send me a message, and I will come back to you as soon as that's all done, so that I can allocate it and so forth, so don't stress about that. So if you want to check us out, we've got also got lots of YouTube videos, and we've got Instagram page, and of course our website, mychristmas.com.au. So that's that. Okay, so first of all, we're going to light this, this centerpiece, and then I'm just going to decorate it for you. I'm using our battery lights. So it's a large battery pack, but they last well, and they've got a timer on them so that they can actually be set, I think it's 8 hours on and 16 hours off on these. I actually thought we'd sold out of these last year, and then I found that I actually stashed a few away for making up things for clients. So we've got a few of these in stock. I just adjust it to just static light. It's just a lot easier to work with. Just make sure I'm on the right setting here. Okay, so first of all, let me show you the easy cheats way of lighting any garland. So it doesn't matter if it's a centerpiece or if it's a really long garland, you would do exactly the same thing that I'm doing here. I think this is 3 meters of lights, and that's, as I said, about a 90 centimeter piece of foliage. So the first thing you want to do, I just unwind the end a little bit just so I can attach it to one of my end pieces of foliage. So that's one end, and then I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the other end. And then, actually before I go any further, I want to find my middle point. So I'm just going to use a piece of ribbon, and I tend to just work to the end group of tips. I don't have to go all the way out here, because if I go to the same point on the other side where the tips go, then that will give me a middle point. If I just fold it in half and then lay it down, then I know that this is my middle point. And I'm just going to put a little piece of ribbon in here for now, just so I know where it is. Not tying it on or anything, so I'm going to take it off as soon as I'm done. All right, but that just helps me with the next stage of this. And as I say, it doesn't matter if you're doing a 2.7 metre or 9 foot garland, which is the other size that we regularly do in the store. You're going to do exactly the same thing. You're probably going to be using a 2.7, you're probably using a 6 metre string of lights for that. And I find the easiest when I've got the two ends like that and I don't have much space, is I just, working with my middle point here, I just group the lights together at that, and then just follow them along until I get to the middle. Just making sure I don't have any twists and turns like I've got at the end here. Get that out. Come on, lights. Okay, so that's the middle of my lights. And just make sure after doing all that I haven't twisted the whole set. I don't like the setting. I like the effect. That's better. Okay. So now, using my middle point, what you can do is actually tie the middle one into place. And just because it's nice to have that in place, and it's really pretty rough, I'm just attaching my pipe cleaner through to the middle and then just twisting it at the back. Okay. So for those who are interested, this foliage, this piece is $69.50, and I think the lights were $49.50 for this LED battery pack. And then you've got basically two sections of lights now, oops, that are the same size. And that means that when you tie your lights on, it's going to be evenly covered. If you always separate, if you're doing a 2.7 metre piece, I would do exactly what I did, and then find another middle point between the two. Because then every time you make your section smaller, every section of lights is exactly the same size, so you're going to make it very easy to cover your entire piece with lights and keep it even. So roughly, for that reason, I'm going to find my middle here, and just to make it a little bit easier on myself, I'll just twist it and put it on there. And then you just winding your lights backwards and forwards through the foliage. So it will depend on how long your lights are as to how closely packed they are on your foliage. Obviously, if you've got a section that's this big, you need to light, and your lights are only that long, it's going to be quite a narrow wiggle. If you've got a section that long and you've got that much in lighting, it's going to be a lot wider. Does that make sense, though?
Yeah.
Okay. You can tell me if I'm not clear.
No.
And so I'm just going to wind. Oh, and you can see I've got the lights on. I always like to work with my lights on when I'm doing this, because then at a glance I can see how I'm going. And because these are, you know, sort of, I've got a little bit of length here, I do like to go right in and under the foliage and bringing it out to the edge. And I'm actually, because I know I've got a centerpiece here, I just want to get these lights sort of through that side as well, because I'm not going to have this bit, it's going to be covered with foliage. So I don't need a lot of lighting in here, I need the lighting sort of around the edges of it. Once we've lit it, we'll actually turn the lights off, and just in case they're flickering or anything on the screen, and then I'll show you the whole thing at the end. If you can, I always say, anything you're doing, if you can light it, it just makes all the difference. So, in fact, let me just take that up a little bit. I always think the best thing you can do when you're looking at any of your decorating is invest in really good foundation pieces. So get your foliage right, get your Christmas tree right, get your lights right. If you get all those things quality, then you can always add decorations that are just, you know, pieces you make or things you find, you know, wherever. But you're not going to notice. If you've got really good foundation pieces, then everything else is always going to look really good. I should have kept a note of my middle point, which I'm going to just quickly do again, because I just want to work to the middle. So that was a bit silly. Let me just... And you can see you don't have to be... So this kind of piece of foliage here is pretty much my middle. You don't have to be super exact, but you know, you don't want to be out with everything down one end. That's going to look pretty horrid. Okay, so at this point, let's just turn these off so you can see everything else that we're doing. At this point, there's a couple of different options. What I wanted to show you is, first of all, this type of foliage here, there's two ways of doing it. When you're working at home, and what I'm going to do today, is I'm not going to attach it to my foliage. I'm just going to lay it underneath on either end, and I'll do this at the end, but I just wanted to show you, because normally if you wanted to attach it, you would do it at this point. So see how you can just add that foliage underneath and you've got your colour. I'm going with the Hamptons, I'm going blue and red on this piece. So that's one thing. If you want to be able to change your centerpiece up to different themes, you might want to do this. However, if you've only got a couple of these picks, and you've got, for example, a longer piece, or you want it more evenly covered, then you can also break these pieces off, and then and I haven't turned the glue on today because I'm not going to glue these on, but then you would just put a little bit of glue on the top of each of the individual picks, and then just lay them underneath your foliage. So if you lay them out like that, you get to see the spray of it coming out the end, but and you can evenly spread them across the whole piece. Okay, so next stage, so as I say, you can either glue this on or you can just layer it there. I'm going to layer it at the end because I'm not going to glue them on. But then if you're wanting to put a pick into your piece, I stupidly didn't bring any picks home. So I had one in my stash. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but obviously it's going to look uneven because I've only got one. When we do this, we are doing everything as though it can be moved because we make it up in the store so that to sell it to people. If you're doing it yourself, you can choose not to tie everything into place as well, okay? So just remember that. So as I said, we've kind of got our middle piece there. What I like to do is just sort of bring my foliage down a little bit. See, can you see how I've bent that? So what I've done, just so you can see, I've just bent it down and then bent it back up again, just to create a kink in it. And the reason for that is I want it to run quite parallel to my foliage, but obviously it has to come out the top. So I'm just going to start with, we just layer it by pushing it through the foliage. Now you can see that that end is broken, so I just want to not cut myself. This pick's actually a broken off piece, so normally it's much longer. But the format, I wanted to show you how you do it, so you can do it yourself. So if you were just doing this at home, you could then choose to just leave it like this and not tie it in. But if you wanted to keep it for more permanent use, a trusty pipe cleaner. All of this is quite small, so I find the pipe cleaners are easy to use. Sometimes cable ties are great when you've got to do a really tight tie of a piece. So I'll hold it up like that, Zoe. Yeah. When you're happy with your positioning, so I would try and have obviously one side, that side, one on the same side, doing exactly the same thing. So just pushing it in, and see how I was saying it kind of sits right, it sits flat. By having that kink, I can kind of position it horizontally with my foliage, that's what I want to say. And just laying it in, just make sure I don't cut this. This thing is cut and twisted. As I said, it's been pulled apart, so it's not a full piece. And then once I've got it in place, I just run the pipe cleaner through the stem and twist it. And I will leave that in for us to make. Obviously it's going to look a bit silly, but I'll leave it in while we make everything up so you can see how we work this into it. And then you can play with this to make your actual pieces of your foliage stick out. This is our little crystal pick, which I think is one of the prettiest ones we have. And the normal length of this, so that's sticking up too much for me, I like it a little bit flatter, it would take it to the end here. Okay, so got our centerpiece, got our lights on, let's pretend we've got our foliage in there. However, if you don't want this foliage, you don't have to either. Remember, it's as much or as little as you want to put into your piece. I don't particularly like going totally over the top. Some of the pieces are a little bit too much for me. I like to still see the foliage underneath and keep it, sort of just, I don't know, elegant, a little bit more simple. Alright, so I'm going to use glass baubles on these because I just love the luster on these glass balls. And I'll just keep them safe out of the way there. And I'm also going to use 2 poinsettias. And I'm going to start with the poinsettias, and the reason I'm going to start with them is because they've got a really short stem on them. And so I want to get them into place first because they're going to take me a little bit of effort to do that. The reason they've got a short stem is they've actually got a clip on them, but I think I gave Andrew my pliers, so I can't cut the clip off. I would normally take that off. Some of them just come off quite easily. This one's on there well. I need little pliers, but I'll work without it. And first of all, obviously, fluff out your poinsettia as well because the flowers are often flat. They've been in the post to you. So you want to get your shape of each of your petals nicely shaped and separated. So these, as I said, this is a really short stem that I'm going to work with. So what I'm going to do, the end result, so just to give you an idea, I'm going to start flattening. I want to flatten out my middle a bit because I'm going to work a poinsettia on either side and then a ball on either side of that. Okay, so I'm going to put the poinsettias in place first, and with their short stem I'm going to work one at a time. So I've kind of made it, because it's so short, I'm making a little bit of a hook which will help me just pull on with the pipe cleaner. Okay, so I want that to go on that side, and I'll get in there, I'll show you in a sec, Zoe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just get the pipe cleaner onto there. And I'm just using my fingers to get it through the foliage. And I don't want it to be, you know, at the moment you can see how it's kind of being squashed there. It's come out of my pipe cleaner. Where is it? My pipe cleaner's still there, but it's not attached. Okay, so I'm just going to pull that tightly on and twist. Okay, and the reason it has to be tight is because of that short stem. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to work my flower sort of to this side here. The fact that I've got my this clip on here, I'm actually going to run my pipe cleaner through that bit of the clip because it gives me something to hold on to as I pull it onto the foliage. Alright, so I normally have them opposite sides, but I think I'm going to have to go this way. So excuse me while I just get my hands in here and see if I can get that to go through on both sides. All gets a little bit congested in the middle, but this is the hardest bit, and without the clip it's a lot easier. Okay, so you can see we've got them sort of diagonally across from each other. Just making sure that I've got it centered on here. Now, much easier part. These balls, as I say, they are glass. But you can see they've got a glass hook on them, so I don't need to glue anything. If you have a cap that comes off, you need to glue the cap into place, and you also need to put a little bit of glue in the wire. That's, oh, in fact, I can show you on these glass balls. I'm going to just pop on at the end. So you need to glue right around here, and you also need to glue this piece of wire, put a bit of glue across the middle there. Otherwise, that can come out or the wire can come out. Alright, so you have two lots of glue on any of the glass balls that have got this type of cap. I want these off anyway because that's how I'm going to put them on in a sec, so that's fine. But this one's easy. All I'm going to do is just run that through, and again just working my pipe cleaner onto either side of my main stem. Just pull that in just tight enough. You don't want to, it's glass, so I don't want to over pull it and break that that loop on it. That's all I need to keep it in place. So how's that, Zoe?
Good.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you can see that we've got our centre done, and just play with everything, play with your foliage if it's a bit sort of full so that you've got it exactly as you want. Now, if we turn our lights on, get to the plain setting, you can see as it stands, it's really pretty. Right? You don't actually need to put a lot on if you don't want to. Let's just put it down as it would be on the table. So we have one of these on either end. Straighten that up. And you know, that kind of extends it on the table as well, as much as you want. With your box here too, I normally just fold up this piece of cord, and I just lay it under some of my longer stems and just try and bend the stems around a little bit to disguise it. Okay, once the lights are on, you don't really notice. But I feel like this is all a bit dark, so what I decided to do was grab some of our little 4cm balls, and you don't need to glue these on. You can just spread these around. Try not to flick myself. And just add this little touch colour. I must say, if you're doing it at home and you can do glass, the glass just has so much more shine to it than the plastic. So, you know, you want to be careful. The advantage of these where you're not gluing it is if you want to take it off and reuse it again, you can, if you glue it on. If you glue on any glass and it breaks, then you're going to have to cut off your piece of foliage, which you can do. Don't be afraid if you've got one that something, or it hasn't worked, you put something on and you think it looks terrible, just cut that piece of foliage off and then just keep using it. No one's going to notice the difference. But just by spreading around some simple little baubles onto this, I'm just going to add that little finishing touch. Actually, no, I prefer to use this one. And because they're not glued on, you do just need to be careful when you move it around because you don't want it to fall off. But they're pretty stable. So this pack is at $14.95 for a pack of glass balls. It's always handy to have a few of these types of things in your stash because they're great if you don't want to use them here. You can always use them in a bowl, around the house, lantern, anything like that as well. So that's it. The other thing that we normally do, I always recommend that you have a couple of table runners in your stash. So when you're setting your table, I don't personally like tablecloths because that's just one more thing I have to clean, which just annoys me. So I tend to have my natural table, and then I will have, if it was this one, I would probably have a red table runner underneath that, and then that means the green and the blue and the red is just really going to pop on the table, and that just finishes it off beautifully. So you can see it's really easy. You can put anything you want into the middle, some magnolias, you could put more balls, you could have a bunch of 3 baubles on there. If you wanted heavier with other decorations, you could add some balls in between the 2 sizes down a bit further, but I think something like that's just enough for the table. If you made it yourself, you're probably looking at, let me just do a quick calculation for you. So with those lights, which as I said, they've got quite a strong power pack in them, so they're 50, 70, 120, 130, 140, 60. Probably about $200 if you bought everything to make that up with all glass and with these lights. The other lights that we use sometimes is strings of 40 of the little micro lights that you've seen me do in the demos as well, the really fine wired lights. They could also be used here. They're just not going to be as strong. There's not as many. You've only got 40 lights on there. You've got, I think, 200 lights from memory on this one. So, as I said earlier, I do check back on here. So if you've got any questions, don't hesitate to let me know and I will come back and answer them for you. We will be back again on Tuesday and Thursday. And don't forget to like away and comment away, and let's get Facebook, not Google, to share this with some of our followers. It's great having all you guys here, and thank you for being 100 today. So have a great couple of days, and we'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.